This is Jack Donovan, author of The Way of Men, and you're listening to Start the World. All right, I'm here today with Anthony Dream Johnson, president of the Manosphere and founder of 21 Studios. Every year he puts on the 21 convention, and he's been doing it for a really long time. Anthony, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. Appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah, so every time I post about the 21 convention, I get questions like, what is this? And what is the Manosphere? And all this kind of stuff, because I have readers across the board who have never heard of that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, I've been involved in the Manosphere for, I guess, a decade. But
yeah, you're the high priest of masculinity in the Manosphere.
Something like that. I'll take it.
Professor Donovan.
Something like that. First I wanted to say, just to get it started, obviously, as you run up into the 21 convention this year, and you got a lot of press for the 22 convention when it first launched, and then I've had to be moved because of the pandemic or whatever.
Like you slipped that in. The pandemic.
Slipped that in. Yeah. I'm bitter. But so you're getting a lot of press for that, and you're going to get a lot more. I'm sure people will actually come across you and see you. I actually had talked about the 22 convention earlier with a female at my jiu-jitsu place, and she thought it was funny.
Nice.
And then she heard it coming up in a female jiu-jitsu forum that a whole bunch of girls were mad about it.
Nice.
And so it's making waves out there. And so, for people who...
Did she know that you know the founder of it and stuff?
What? Oh, the group?
No, the chick, the jiu-jitsu chick. Did she know that you weren't speaking at it? But she know that you...
She thought,
okay.
In my group, whenever I told her the whole story, and she's like, "Oh, that's funny."
Yeah.
A whole bunch of ladies get mad about it, and so it's out there, and people know about it, and people are talking about it, and so forth. And one thing I wanted to say before we start is that, you're getting all this press, and you are a little bit of you're a Trump guy. And you like to play the Trump game and push people's buttons and mess with them a little bit, and that's cool. And you provoke a response, and that's awesome. But one thing I really wanted to say is, obviously I've known you for several years now, and I've had the opportunity to watch you evolve and watch you do things and watch you react to things and so forth. And my impression, excluding all these other things that all these other people say, my impression is that you're a good dude who actually has devoted his life to helping men, which I think is really, really admirable. And so that's my impression of Anthony going into this discussion. I think he's doing, it's a lot of work. And whenever you put yourself out there talking positive about masculinity, you're putting yourself in a firing squad to a certain degree.
Yep.
And I've done it. You're doing it all the time. You're going big with it. And, it's a lot of work, and it's a hard game, but it's worth it because we care about it. So that's good.
Absolutely.
But
I appreciate that too, man. I think your opinion of me is shared among people who know me. Mm-hmm. And it's different from the internet, just the persona that people see, which is why I think people ask you that, like, why do you speak there? Like, how do you know that guy?
Right.
I guess in real life, when you get to know me, it's different than just the internet, the super flaming, provoke everyone response type thing.
Right.
But there's more to it than that, obviously. It's primarily just positive and educational, but then I mix in my own personality with it and it just triggers everybody. Yeah. But then in real life, I'm really just calm and just hey, let's go chill out and have a drink or cigar or something.
Exactly. People always have this weird impression of people who are in the public eye. I get it too.
They think they know you.
I think I'm taller, and they think I'm taller and angrier. They want me to be really angry all the time, me too. I'm laughing all the time, and so it's not quite the same thing. But so to start out, because people don't always know, and as the president, who is better qualified to talk about it? What is the Manosphere? How would you define that?
Sure. So I think the Manosphere is the world's first emerging movement of men, boys, and fathers. Primarily, obviously, there's no boys in it. They're really not old enough for it. But there's plenty of teenagers in it and stuff like that. But primarily, it's men and then fathers as well. And I think it's the world's first emerging movement for men, boys, and fathers that we've seen come out into the world like that through the internet and stuff. And it's specifically for the purpose, though, of masculinity and men and boys and fathers, and then related topics to that, relationships, games, so to speak, health and fitness, even politics and stuff. So advocating for the interests of men. And you saw my speech in Poland actually called, the Manosphere itself.
Yeah.
The Manosphere, talking about this. Yeah. So I think it's the world's first movement for that, but we've never seen that. Movements, women had their own feminist movement, right? There's suffragettes and the feminists, all that. They have their own thing. But men have never really had that. I think the Manosphere is actually the first iteration of that we've ever seen. And it's still very young. I'd say it dates back to the 1990s with early men's rights activists and pickup artists. Ross Jeffries, Mystery, Alan Archer Curry, some guys we know personally from the event. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty young. It's, barely 20-something years old now, maybe 25 or something like that, depending how you count it. So it's still very young, but I've never seen anything like that before. Men are coming together for that purpose. It's not like a racial thing for like white or black men or whatever. It's not a religious thing. There's all kinds of races and religions involved. That's what makes it really special. Like when I do our event at the hotel, I tell them that we do a men's event, now we're doing a women's event and a fatherhood event. And they immediately go, oh, it's like a Christian religious thing. I'm like, no, it's for all men and fathers. And they're like, the hotel people are stunned. They've never seen that before. They immediately assume it's like, which is fine, them to think that. I get it. But they immediately assume it's some sort of religious thing. I'm like, no. And we have Jews show up, Muslims, Christians, Baptists, Catholics, Mormons. I'm an atheist, subjectivist myself, Ayn Rand sense, or Ayn Rand kind of legacy with that. So it's very, very diverse, the guys that show up. I think we're a role model of what America is supposed to be, but we actually do it in a really healthy, positive, useful, rational way. Whereas the people usually scream diversity and stuff, it's all super rational, pseudo-communist, neo-Marxist, feminist garbage. Where our stuff's like a lot more positive and healthy and super legitimately inclusive, not in some Orwellian newspeak way. And you've seen that yourself at the events, all the guys that show up. It's incredible. From all over the world too. We have guys show up from Australia, India, Canada, Europe, Germany, Austria. I mean, it's wild. We guys just show up at the event.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that answers your question with the Manosphere. That's a huge community.
Yeah, well, I mean, that whole community is not necessarily positive, but people have to go through different stages in their interface with reality. Yeah. Obviously because they're trained in a lot of them don't have fathers, and a lot of them, have to experience it for the first time. And so there's some anger and there's different levels.
Yeah. And to be more specific though to your question, so the Manosphere is not just this. They describe it on Wikipedia, and the news people, the news articles who hate it, they start to attack it and undermine it. They want to break it up basically to stop it. And they're so far losing that, which is good. The Atlantic has done a couple articles on it, and the New York Times, to try to beat it up and stuff. Wikipedia has a shitty article on it. Mm-hmm. But basically, it's not just a widely dispersed community of men and fathers and stuff, looking at interests for men and fathers from different angles. It's specifically 4 main communities that make it up. And there's a few guys in the auxiliary. So on the outer ring, if you look at like a circle, in the outer ring, you'd have kind of guys who are loosely associated with men's issues. Mm-hmm. That'd be like Stefan Molyneux maybe, although he's gotten more involved with the Manosphere. Jordan Peterson's a good example. Mm-hmm. He would not consider himself Manosphere, but I think he is on the distant fringe of it. And Sargon of Akkad's another example, who focuses on criticizing feminism, advocating for men and fathers, but it's not his primary thing. Jordan Peterson, same way. But as you get into the inside of the Manosphere, the core components, it's 4. That the men's rights activists who've been around for a long time, decades. They focus on men's rights issues, father rights issues, all kinds of stuff like that. But it's usually specific to politics and family law and stuff like that. Then if you go into the pickup artist community, that's famous from Ross Jeffries, Mystery, and those guys, that focuses on picking up women, pretty much just focusing on improving as a man your social, dating, and sexual skills. It's not necessarily anything to do with health and fitness or the red pill or men's rights or anything like that. And then beyond that, you have the MGTOW community, which has been growing as well, I think from the late 90s, early 2000s. It's men going their own way. Guys kind of checking out. There's different layers to it, levels to it. I'm not like a super duper expert on MGTOW stuff, but we have speakers that are much more involved in that community. That's picked up a lot of steam in recent years. So MGTOW, and then the final one is the red pill community, which is huge on Reddit until they get killed off pretty soon. They're quarantined right now. They're going to get the axe any day, they think. And that's got about 300,000 guys, and a lot of speakers know the convention from that. And the red pill is kind of like the pickup artist community, but a lot more hardcore. The pickup artist community in the late 2000s, I was involved with it. It started kind of softening up, getting more feminized, effeminate, basically, more apologetic, more warm to feminism and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you saw this in the news even with guys like Neil Strauss, who wrote The Game, Mystery, and these guys. Neil Strauss went to like a sex rehab thing, just
Yeah.
absolutely made up bullshit. You saw them start apologizing basically for masculinity. And the red pill guys were much more in line with what you think and what you write about in The Way of Men. And they were
Right.
like, nope, check them the fuck out. So it was
Yeah.
a divergent, the manosphere basically, that element of the manosphere, the pickup guys, they split off into the red pill and they're still a community today. So it's the 4 groups and then some larger figures on the outside like Jordan Peterson, Sargon of Akkad. And that basically is the manosphere, and it's millions of men and fathers around the world. I don't know how many millions, but it's each one is like 300, 400,000 guys on a single subreddit. You know, the pickup artists have like 300,000, red pill 300,000, MGTOW about the same, men's rights about the same. And then you have YouTube channels like ours and Stefan Molyneux, who got killed off the other day, that are pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's millions of guys.
No, absolutely. And you said there's never been anything like that before. And then, you know, obviously it's because there didn't need to be, you know, you know, before we didn't have a men's movement. And feminists would say it's because, well, you've always run everything, so you didn't need to have, and that's true. You know, that is the way it is. But, you know, obviously there are a lot of issues. My entry point years ago was, you know, I started writing about masculinity from a different angle. And then I started writing for this blog, the Spearhead. And that really
I know it.
had some talking to some of those guys about some of the stories about things that they'd gone through in divorce court and things, you know, have a SWAT team show up to their house and put him on the floor or whatever because their wife was mad. You know, like stuff. I mean, that stuff happens and people don't hear about it because then those guys have to go to court and they have to still try to make it like it's okay because they want to see their kids. And so they're not going to just like become this big media figure all of a sudden because they're still trying to fight for their kids. And I actually had a dude who follows me on Instagram put something out the other day where he was like, you know, he had changed his whole Instagram profile and he was raising money to basically fight the courts to keep his kids. Yeah. And I sent him $25. I was like, I hate those stories. Whenever I hear it, it bugs me. And then like I got like, I would say 8 more DMs from other followers who was like, oh, I've been through that. Oh, I pay a mortgage in childcare, you know, and it's a terrible story, you know, and you know, and I think it's easy for a lot of those guys to focus on in a very negative place, and that's why it's really good to have a positive, you know, a positive direction for them, which is what I think you're trying to do with the 21 convention. So absolutely. Yeah.
I think the manosphere, as much as it has some negative elements to it, so to speak, first of all, there's a reason for that stuff. These guys get burned because they're fucking angry. It's justified.
I would be
on top of that
if I went through half of that. I mean, I haven't had to go through a lot of it. I just see it. It makes me mad. Yeah. And, I can't imagine how angry I would be. You know? Yeah.
But the one thing that makes the manosphere, people like to say they want to view it strictly as a response to feminism. And that's part of it, I think, for sure. You know, the feminism, especially the radical stuff we've seen over the past 30, 40 years and stuff, post second wave and all that, that has inspired, I think, a lot of what we're seeing with the manosphere. And you see these different, I think some of it's even just risk tolerance stuff. The MGTOW guys, the manosphere generally, I don't know if they get along, but they share fundamental beliefs and values. And sometimes they get along, and sometimes they fight, the different communities. But all of it, I think, is partly a response to feminism fucking up, you know, gender relations in a sense. And then guys on top of that have different risk tolerances. So the MGTOW guys, they view the same, for example, the MGTOW and the Red Pill community, they get along, in terms of beliefs, they get along really tight. They believe a lot of the same things. They have divergent ways of dealing with it. The MGTOW guys are like getting away from it. The Red Pill guys are more assertive and aggressive, still staying in the game, so to speak, still approaching women, still trying to do things right.
Right.
So there's different ways of dealing with it. But some of these guys, here's what I want to say. Here's the important part for our loose train of thought. So feminists are strictly, I think, negative. They haven't done anything positive in a long, long time. Even in their whole history, I don't think it's very positive at all. It's been very negative with a good PR campaign. Whereas the manosphere, most of it's actually very positive, and it's been and so in that sense, it is a response to feminism, but it's a legitimate, genuine mirror, and that it's self-improvement focused. And you don't see that in feminism at all. In the manosphere, very widely, you see a focus on health and fitness. You see a focus on getting your career, you know, your finances in order and being self-reliant, self-responsibility, mastery. A lot of guys are fans of your work, you know, the tactical virtues. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot different from feminism. So anyone saying it's like just a mirror opposite of feminism, it's just bitchy guys whining about the way of the world or whatever. First of all, a lot of that's justified. You know, these guys are pissed off. But second, there's a big focus on self-improvement in all the communities, all of it. And that's, I think, very healthy and very positive. And you don't see that with women in feminism. They have nothing that's positive until Make Women Great Again. Right there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, the male response to things is to take action.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation is to find a path forward and to take action. Because if men don't feel like they're taking action, they don't feel like they're doing anything. They feel very impotent. And it's definitely, I think, a big struggle between chaos and order. And that's a lot of what I'm writing about and working on now in my book. Men have to impose order on the world. They want things to be ordered. They want things to have definitions and things that are separate to be separate. And that makes the world make sense to them. And if they don't have that, it's really unsettling for them. And I think unsettling for society, because like what feminism does, it's been all about taking down order, about creating chaos, really, by
smash the patriarchy, smash, break.
But what are you replacing it with? And they don't really have a good answer to that, and they never have. So it's like, if you destroy something, I mean, men destroy things all the time. I mean, America was destroyed. I mean, we destroyed our relationship with England and created a new country. You destroy something to create something. Whereas I think that feminism has been very much about just destruction of the old order, without really replacing a new order. It's just a complete leveling. And men like hierarchy. Like it doesn't matter if you're on the bottom or the top. I want a hierarchy to be there. What is good and what is bad? What is better? What is best? Like this, men like that. And like you've been talking about, whether it's like kind of like body acceptance movement or any of these things, like feminism has been very much about everything is okay. Everything is equally good. And men don't see it that way. And I think that's one of the key things that maybe all the guys in the manosphere really understand, is that they think that men and women are different, which, is really, you have to live in a bubble to not believe that. And
that's been common sense for pretty much all of civilization, and probably even before that. But probably absolutely before that. It was even more of a contrast, living out in the middle of fucking nowhere in the woods. Yeah,
it's basic division of labor and the thing of pregnancy.
It's believing what your eyes tell you. Like, men and women are different. No shit.
It's very obvious and very basic, and you really have to do a lot of gymnastics to get around that. And they spent many years developing those gymnastics, but at the end of the day, the truth is still there, and you can't really get away from it. And so I think
your point here with order and chaos is huge, and I think the manosphere is actually like on a gene level, archaea selection, gene thing, evolutionary, whatever. So maybe it's cultural and society, but the manosphere is the first, like, basically gender-based pushback against feminism that's healthy and positive and ordering. It's men wanting to bring order into their own lives personally, whether that's a guy who got burnt in divorce court, or a MGTOW guy who got burnt on a relationship and he's like, fuck Western women, fuck this, I'm out, I'm gonna go fuck off to Ukraine or something, or just fucking stay away from women, period. Because they're just sick of it. They're sick of cancel culture. They're sick of Me Too. They're sick of divorce court. They're sick of divorce rape. They're sick of the Will Smith shit. They're sick of the Johnny Depp shit. I mean, whether you're you can be Brad Pitt and you get fucked. I mean, literally Brad Pitt, Johnny Depp, and Will Smith are losing out on this shit. Where does that leave the average guy who's an assistant manager at Best Buy? To interact with women. I mean, it's fucking crazy, man.
Situation is a lot harder when you don't have millions of dollars of buffer. I mean, guys who are just making an average living, because there's this idea of privilege and whatever, and like the average guy really isn't that privileged. The average guy is just trying to make ends meet and get it together and hold his life together. And when you throw, whether it's huge fines at a business or whether these huge payments that these guys can't afford, whatever, that it's crippling to them.
I mean, look at Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's a victim of domestic violence, it looks like. And even with all dude, Amber Heard beat the shit out of this guy, dude. I mean, there's like all this evidence and she accused him of this shit. And he's finally suing the shit out of her, defamation, all this shit.
Right.
But I think this guy is powerful. He has connections. He has relationships. He has status. He has money. He can hire the best attorneys in the world. And that dude can barely get that shit done. Just fucking barely, I think, over the line. And that's a guy he's worth like $200 million or something.
Right.
Like, where does that leave the guy? Even like your local doctor has money. Like that's fucking chump change compared to celebrities. Like it's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. No, it's really, and I don't think people realize, I was talking to someone who I would say is more progressive, I think the other week, and they just don't realize how loaded the system is in that direction. Yeah. Even when we talk about psychologists and therapists and that whole industry is very one-sided in the way it sees the world. And it's married to a particular agenda. And so it's like, well, just have a psychiatrist evaluate them. Well, they're going to evaluate them in a very specific lens, according to the APA guidelines are like, what masculinity itself is bad. So, if he's being a man the right way, he's, like toxic to them. I think the day is coming. I think the day is coming when masculinity itself, anything to do with traditional masculinity, is considered as a mental disorder. Like they came pretty close to that last time, and I think in the next 5-10 years, that's what's going to happen. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's coming down the pike, and I've said often that I think that it's almost masculinity is almost going to become like a cult. Like it's a religion in itself. And that's kind of their direction that I'm going with some things, is just because it's really, it's going to be a choice that you have to do underground. Now, actually, the whole
when does church start? When do I sign up?
I'm working on it. I'm on step 6. But yeah, I mean, it really is. It's something that men are going to have to choose and follow, and they're going to be demonized for it. And I've always said that that's how you become the best version of yourself. I mean, if I wouldn't have ever forced myself to, go take boxing or do something that puts me in at risk, and deal with that interaction with other men and all the things that you get out of that, I would not be anything like what I'm like today. It definitely transforms you. And I think that men need that. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't see it. I mean, I made a comment on Parlay actually the other day. It's like, there's this kind of doctor mentality that people have that if you hurt yourself, you should never do that thing that you hurt yourself again. If you pulled your back deadlifting, you should never deadlift again. And there's a lot of doctors that will just tell you that. And that's kind of a mentality that's prevailing. It's very motherly, protective mentality. But the reality is that if you're going to do cool things, you're going to get hurt.
It's the same thing in the manosphere. You see that. Yeah, you see that in your relationships sometimes. Some guys get really burnt on a relationship. I've been to some bad shit. Mm-hmm. And then they just avoid relationships indefinitely. Now, there can be some other reasons for this. Politics going on, the Me Too, witch hunt, all this crap. But in terms of a one-on-one relationship, that's a bad idea to use an unequal one experience, a personal experience like that, and way too heavily an anecdote like that. Like, oh, I had a bad experience in this relationship, therefore fuck women. Women are evil. Women are stupid. I'm never going to date them ever again. You see guys do this all the time. There's even YouTubers. I was looking at yesterday, this guy, and he promotes this crap, and it's just like, dude, not good, dude.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I actually even had a friend say that to me, and it kind of put me in my place on that one in terms of tribalism. It's like I did a thing with a tribe, and it didn't work out. And he's like, "Oh, so you date one girl and you never date girls again? Is that how it works?" I'm like, "Oh, all right, you're right." I can't be dead set against this thing that I care about because I had a bad experience. And so you can't let one experience. You have to have a group selection of data to pull from, because and that's the other thing that people say is if you're anti-feminist that you hate all women, and that's a very common thing. And really, not all women are radical feminists. In fact, very, very few are.
Correct. Very few of them even identify as feminists at all. I think 75% in England a couple years ago do not identify as a feminist when they're asked. They don't want anything to do with it. That doesn't mean they don't believe feminist ideas, but in terms of how they identify, they're like, fuck, they know to stay away from it. It's toxic. Yeah. So
so I mean, just it doesn't mean that you hate all women, and it's the same kind of thing with Black Lives Matter. It's kind of the same kind of deal. Oh, if you don't support Black Lives Matter, this crazy Marxist group, then you hate all black people, and of course that's not true at all. And It's just unfortunate, but that's the frame. Is they're going to push that frame because it makes everyone feel like they have to get on board.
Yeah, it's a logical fallacy being used as effective marketing, and it's effective. People fall for it. That's, I mean, with feminism is hate women. I'm an abolitionist, actually. I want to abolish feminism. So Piers Morgan called me an abolitionist, and I was like, yes, I'm an abolitionist. Because that's good marketing. I was like, yeah, I'm an abolitionist. I'm on a mission to abolish this.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I want to free women from the slavery of feminism.
Absolutely, yeah. I want them back in the kitchen and out of the workforce. That's where they belong. That's where they're happy. So out of the chains.
Yeah. I always say that people like that, for every one of these, popular feminist bloggers or writers or some woman who's actually at the head of the top of industry, and that's certainly prevalent all around the world. For every one of those, there's some chick who just would like to hang out with her kids, but she has to go to work at Walmart every day because that's the only way she can make a living, and that's the way society's been designed now. And so she has actually the reality of work is that most people don't like their jobs. I mean, all through history, that's most people, dudes didn't want to go work in coal mines. That's just how they could make a living. And, not all work is about fulfillment. Some jobs just need to be done, like the micro dirty jobs. Like there's somebody out there, cleaning the sewage plant, and it's not because he's being fulfilled by it. It's because he needs a job and it pays well. And men have always done that kind of stuff, and there's no romance or excitement to it, and feminism really romanticized these careers as if like careers for most people. I mean, you're lucky you get to do what you want for a living. I get to do what I want for a living, for now. I may have to go down and get a job someday, whatever, but hopefully not. But most people, that's
I never had to. I just do what I want. I just do what I want every day, all day.
Well, who knows what the world has in store for us? It's been a weird year.
Yeah.
We need about 5 more days, and who knows what it looks like. But and that's another thing that I've also talked about a lot is that there used to be a thing like, well, you're going to be masculinity someday, and I was always like, well, what if you didn't though? Like, would you still want to be a man? Because you can't rely on that. But it turns out we're in a situation where people very well may need to figure out how to be men, be good at being men pretty soon, depending on what happens. So there's a saying that's been going around on Twitter, and it's that nature is healing.
It's like the virus, and I mean, look at what the virus has done to. I mean, I don't know. There's all these other effects like the riots and shit, all this pent up energy locking people up. Yeah. But it's also shown us who the tyrants are. These little local, county mayors and city mayors and governors and shit. These little fucking tyrants. So that's good. I mean, in a sense, I don't like what they've done in a lot of cases with COVID and shit, but it's shown us who they are. It's taken the mask off, ironically. Absolutely. Also, the feminism. A lot of women, all of a sudden they've all of a sudden when shit hit the fan. I got hit up a bunch of times by chicks I haven't talked to in years. Like it's out of the blue. And a lot of guys are importing this. And so it's women, when shit hits a fan, all of a sudden they're seeking out, that masculinity. And I guess in a long enough time span, it's always bound to happen. And history does correct itself. I hate to rely on that, because people are always like, well, we have to get to the end of the next cycle. Well, that could be in 200 years. I want to live my life right now, so I don't want to rely on that. But some corrections may be happening right now. But I just wanted to clear that up. You said women were hitting you up. I heard that you were an incel. Oh, me? Yeah. I get all kinds of. I mean, I get called every name on the internet. Yeah. My life is. I've been single for a long time, so I'm relationship volcel, I guess you call it. Okay. There's that. I was asked this question on Piers Morgan. I should have fucking just thrown it at his face, but he asked me why I'm single and shit, and I really should have been dude, I'm banging 4 different women at a time, not in my room at the same time, but concurrently throughout the week and the month. Right. And that's pretty common, 3, 4, 5 women at a time that I have on a rotation. So this kind of incel stuff, it's so delusional. I bang hot chicks too. I love it. My goal, I don't like quantity. I like the highest quality. Not that they're not that they have inner beauty, so to speak, but on the outside, I'm I want the hottest fucking chick I can find with the biggest tits and the nicest body and all that.
Right.
If she's great on the inside too, that's great. Because I'm not dating this woman long term. I'm not building a family with them and stuff. But I want to have fun, and I want to bang super hot chicks because that's what feels good. It's just hedonism. But it's hedonism. It's hedonism with a long term purpose because I'm building skill and experience. I know that it's going to be useful in like longer term in my life. To just keep learning about the opposite sex. So yeah, if most people saw the woman I banged, they would be like really angry. They'd want to choke me. They're that hot. I make a habit of it, or a point of kind of the hottest ones. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I mean, but
Nobody believes me, but on the internet, I guess. But who cares?
well, yeah, I mean, like internet is kind of, Pixar didn't happen, but
Yep.
what's as far as you talked about family, and you've been promoting family a little bit more through the 21 convention and so forth. I mean, that's been part of it. I mean, how does that fit into your picture?
Well, partly we're just rebuilding the patriarchy. We're building a new one, and that's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's also like very literal. The feminists, obviously, they smashed the patriarchy, as they told us millions of times now. And I think one of the ways I work as an entrepreneur and then think as a man and as an young American, I look at things that I hate, movements, and then I flip everything. I think my basic theory is that when you see a toxic movement like feminism or BLM, everything that they value is inverted. So everything that they hate is actually really good. Everything they like, basically, pretty much, is really bad. So feminists like diversity and stuff, all this crap, that's all a lie. They hate diversity. Any diversity of thought and opinion, they fucking hate it, right?
Right.
But also feminists hate patriarchy. So what does that mean? I mean, basically, you're on a common sense fashion, patriarchy is really good. Men leading families, men leading civilization, not necessarily by law and stuff. I think people should be treated equally before the law. But in terms of like culturally and socially, what we're going to encourage and what we're going to push, especially in a family, who's going to lead a family? Who's going to drive the bus or drive the car if a family is a car? The man. I think that's the way it's always been, more or less, and it's the way it should be. I think that's what women respond to really well, and so men excel at. It's what makes them, that's being in alignment with your nature as a man, is to be a leader, especially the family where you've impregnated a woman and now you have little half-used running around. So yeah, the family thing is big. It's been since 2019, we started getting that going, a patriarch edition of the event. And that's pretty much our main event, like, 21 convention, but with a much stronger focus on fathers, fatherhood, and family, and patriarchy, literally. Some of the speakers will talk on it explicitly. And to me, people see a conflict in that because I'm like myself, not a father. I don't speak at it though. So I draw lines. Like all the speakers at the patriarch event have to be biological fathers. If you're not a biological father, you can't speak, period. Right. So I actually value these things a lot. I really want to build a family. I look forward to it. I have another nephew on the way in like 5-6 weeks now. Really excited. I think babies are underrated. Babies are awesome, and all that. But I'm not a father yet. So the patriarch edition, I don't speak. I speak at the other events because it fits the narrative of what we're doing. But at the fatherhood event, only fathers can speak, and I'm very strict about that. And I run my own company. I don't respond to shareholders or anything like that. I'm not under anybody's thumb, so I could change it at any point, but I don't. Out of respect for the kind of content we're building and the kind of mission, and the fathers speaking there who have biological skin in the game. Even I had one guy want to speak who was only a stepfather, and it was no. You have to be a biological father. You have to have biological skin in the game, period. And yeah, again, for me though, there's no dissonance. There's no conflict with it. No. If I found a great mother for my child tomorrow, I might pull the trigger on it. I can't say that I would without, being in that situation, but definitely something I want to do, start in my 30s. And I look forward to it. In the meantime, I'm not responsible for what women do that I don't know. So if I pick up some girl at the bar and I bring her home and we fuck for 5 hours, have a good time, probably raw dog it, honestly. I'm not responsible for what she's done. That's not the first time she's done that. There's no if she's 28 years old, I'm probably the 28th guy she's done that with or something, right?
Right.
I'm responsible for being number 28, sure. I'm not responsible for the previous 27 dudes.
Right.
I'm not taking responsibility for your life. I don't know you. You're not my best friend's sister. I don't work with you. I'm not related to you, obviously. I'm not fucking responsible for you. You're responsible for you. Your parents are responsible for you. And I'm responsible for you in that night. And that's it. If it just ends there, which it probably will.
Yeah. Well, that would be from their own perspective, quite feminist. Because they're taking responsibility. That's a strong, independent woman who made her own choices.
Yeah, that's right. Ride my dick. Yeah. Yeah. But the TradCons come after me on Twitter, these TradCon guys, which I like these guys. They have traditional conservative values and stuff, whatever. I have criticisms of what they do because obviously they're not winning the culture war. It's been a downward fight or downhill fight. But they come after me for stuff like, why do you do this? Why do you go on Tinder and bang these girls and go to bars and stuff and you promote fatherhood and family? I'm like, what else am I going to do in the meantime? Like, I'm not going to be celibate, whatever.
Right.
These girls are out doing this anyway. If I don't partake in it, I do have lines I draw. Like, I don't help women commit adultery or cheat. If I find out she has a boyfriend or husband, I vacate immediately. And I've lost some hot girls with that because they want to use me to cheat. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm out. Now, are they going to cheat anyway? Absolutely. 99% chance. If they're going to cheat with me, they'll find some other dude to do it that night or the next night or whatever.
Right.
So I know that I'm not changing the world doing that, but I know that I'm also going to not enable what I view as relationship abuse or the downfall of marriage. It's going to happen anyway, but I'm not going to be part of it.
Right.
Outside of that, if some girl wants to be a hoe and have sex with me 2 hours after meeting me or faster, or whatever, on a date or something, I mean, that's great. Let's do it. Like, you're going to have a good time. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm not responsible for your past or your future because the chance of me dating that girl is super low anyway.
Right.
That's how I look at it. People get upset at me that I'm enabling it. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to stop thoughterry, by refusing to put my dick in a girl one at a time. Like, it's stupid.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm in a similar position to you in that sense. I mean, I'm very, I want to support fatherhood and patriarchy. Obviously, patriarchy is kind of the foundation of everything, and it's and everything good, and a lot of problems in society come from men not having good father figures, not having that kind of representation.
Father knows best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fathers create structure. Mm-hmm. Women nurture, fathers create structure, and together those two things go very well. They play off of one another and they're complementary. But with my parents are still married. I'm lucky enough to come from a background like that. But actually, my sisters are both still married. They're about my age. So I actually come from a pretty stable background like that. But I'm not married, and so I do the same thing that you do. I don't tell fathers how to father. Because that's not my business. That's not my job.
Same.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have the credibility to talk about that. I don't tell warriors how to make war, and I don't tell fathers how to father.
That's somebody else's position.
Yeah. But at the same time, you could talk about what the big picture of what father is. Yes. And I think that's like, I'm writing a little bit about that now, and you can talk about what that is without actually giving, like, I'm not going to tell you how to change a diaper. I have no idea.
I'm doing what you're doing, except more indirectly. So I'm finding speakers like you, except they're fathers. So Tanner Guzzi, Hunter Drew, Socrates, Stefan Molin, all these guys. So I find guys who I do have opinions on fatherhood, masculinity, and how they work together in patriarchy. Sure. But since I'm not a father, I don't speak on it directly. But I find guys to voice what I believe to be true, to the best of my ability to judge it. And I don't tell them what to say. They do their own fucking thing. I don't dictate. You know that firsthand. I don't tell guys what to say. The only thing I've ever said to speakers like you is, like, don't get us kicked off YouTube. Just use your best. That's hard to do anyway, obviously, at this point. Right. But just use your best judgment. Other than that, you have free reign to say whatever you believe. In fact, what you believe is most important to you is what you should say on the stage at the conference. And then as do that with fathers. And then all of a sudden you put 20 of these dudes together in a room, and you have kind of like a small convention, not a small convention, but I think about it like the constitutional conventions and like the Declaration of Independence. Mm-hmm. You have guys getting together that are declaring like a direction for fatherhood that's different from what the feminist establishment, the feminist order has been dictating for 100 years now. And the patriarchy smashed up with the patriarchy. Fathers are stupid. Fathers are useless. If you go on TV, fathers are fucking dumbass buffoons. The wife's is super intelligent, knows everything, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what we're doing is totally opposed to all that shit. And it's unapologetic too. Like, you've been to these events. Yeah. And that to me is a really beautiful, very positive thing coming together like that. And to be able to direct that and put that together is like really fun for me. I love doing it. Oh yeah. I mean, I love watching same thing. I love having dudes like Tanner or Ryan Mickler or someone say the things that I would want to say about fatherhood. They're verifying, okay, they're actually doing it and they agree with me. So that's exciting, Hey, it's validating. But it's also, I'm glad that they're putting that message out there for the guys who need that particular advice, because they're building families right now, and they need to hear the right things, because there's a lot of bad advice out there. And so to hear these guys who have it together and have really, the whole picture, that dudes want, I think is really good.
But
I think it's important too, though, that they speak firsthand as a father, and that's why guys instinctively, like me and you, don't do it.
Right.
It's like I haven't put a baby in a chick and then watch my own genetic legacy walk around. Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like having a nephew, even that I'm related to, I'm like, wow, this is huge.
Yeah.
But these guys do. Ryan Mitchell and Hunter and Tanner, these guys have kids and they have skin in the game. They have firsthand experience of being a father, through thick and thin, all kinds of shit. So that it's not only validating it, but it's important. I think it's important for the audience, the fathers who need the help, need the advice, the motivation, the whatever, right, the knowledge, what to do, how to navigate the world as a father. They need to see guys doing it successfully as fathers, not guys like me and you are like, well, I think this is true. I'm pretty sure based on what I've read and what I understand, but you haven't tested it yourself, firsthand. So.
Right. So it's, I mean, to circle back on the thing about, the criticisms you get from like TradCons and so forth. The reality is, I mean, you have guys like Ryan Mickler and you have Tanner and so forth, and they also have a community framework that supports this positive thing in many ways. I mean, they have like a religious background that supports that, and there are a lot of different religions that do that. So there's a big buy-in and there's a big penalty for leaving, and so you have it's much more cohesive than mainstream modern culture, which is just kind of no fault divorce or fault divorce, or just take we're doing this for a few years, then we're going to do something else and whatever. And most people are a lot of people are in that situation. And one of the things that I've said to people is that you can't assume that all guys are going to get married and have kids, because that's really never happened in history. That's not, I mean, there are a lot of guys who are expendable in some way or another, whether they go on, sailing ships or whatever, don't come back for 10 years or go fight with the Legion or whatever. I mean, they not every dude has a wife and kids or is entitled to one. But for the guys who really want it, I think it's a really good thing. But there are also a lot of men and women who are just never going to get there. They aren't looking for that or that whatever. So I mean, by you going out and enjoying the people who are probably never going to get there, I mean, like you're not getting them there. I mean, they're not going to get there anyway. And they probably shouldn't be mothers. A lot of them.
A lot of them are, honestly, a lot of them are mothers today.
Well, I mean, that's I
that's
get
its
it.
own fucking I mean, a lot of them, dude. People don't get it, man. Modern single mothers and millennial single mothers, a lot of them are really hot. That's actually the reason that they're single mothers. Is some dude eventually they're promiscuous. There's no social or religious pressures to push back against being promiscuous. Keep the lights closed, so they just kind of bang guys indiscriminately. They've been trained and encouraged to do this behavior by feminism their whole lives, from age 10 up or even before that. At the end of the day, though, eventually they just find a guy who doesn't pull out. That's what happens. It's a ticking time bomb. I pull out. My pull-out game is undefeated. I tell chicks this. But they find some guy, the guy's drunk or he just doesn't give a fuck or whatever reason. And eventually they fuck enough dudes, 20, 30, 40 dudes, who knows what, right? And the dude doesn't pull out and they have a kid.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, they bang me. And I'm like, I'm not going to date you. You have another man's child. Like, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe some guy will, but I mean, you got to get realistic. These are another thing too, the single moms, that's too much of a tangent, but they have like really bad expectations. They're super unrealistic because they still think like they don't have a kid in a way. Even if they're not like a horrible mother, it hasn't connected. They know, but they refuse to connect the dots that having a kid is going to massively lower your attractive level for a guy who doesn't have kids and doesn't want to take care of another man's kid because it's not his kid. I won't take care of my own kids who don't exist yet. So
totally. I mean, I've went on like 3 dates with strippers last year that were very much like that, where like they don't even realize they're strippers. Like that changes the value of whatever. Like they want to treat you like you're dating them. Like you show your vagina to them for $1. That's your, and they're also single mothers, all of them too.
I think of course. I think feminism, you were talking about feminism saying everything's equal. The body, the fat positivity or whatever the fuck it's called, all that shit. It's the same thing. It's the same concept you're saying with these strippers and shit. Everything's equal. It's this very, communist kind of mindset. Everything's equal to the point of insanity and absurdity. And then, even if they're a stripper and they sell their vagina for a couple dollars at a strip club and they have another man's child or 2 or 3, they still act like they're hot, like they're king shit, just because their body maybe is still in good shape and they still might be physically attractive. It's like, there's more to you than that. And you're not acknowledging that. And that's a problem. It's not only awkward to be on the receiving end of that, it ruins their life. It makes relationships impossible for them because they're always trying to hypergamy. So date up, and they're trying to date guys, like me, some young single dude who's put together. I don't have, any like problems like that. And shit. I don't have some ex-baby mama. I don't have other children from other women running around and stuff, which would be an issue too. I don't have any of that. I don't have STDs. I don't have, none of this shit, right? I'm not an ex-criminal. I haven't been in prison or anything. And they try to date guys like that. And it's like, you're out of your mind. Like you're 3 leagues out of your own domain where you belong. They don't want to hear it. So they end up crazy cat ladies with, multiple children from multiple fathers, and they end up drinking. I mean, there's actually it's kind of a tragic note, but alcoholism is skyrocketing for women today in their 50s.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's like, no shit. Like, look at the way you've lived your life and the kind of, expectations you have of the world. You're completely entitled to the point of delusion.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see where that goes too. I mean, but it's there was a whole cocktail culture, and that's where all the girls get together, and then you get a decade of that or so in there, and that's going to happen. And they have nothing else to do. I mean, and that's a problem with men too. Frankly, I mean, when you have men, that's a challenge. I've talked to Richard Grannon a little bit about that on the podcast. Is that men without structure or responsibilities also tend to self-destruct as they get older. And because dudes who have kids, their lives are planned. They have busy things to, like baseball practice and all this stuff has to go on. But dudes, I mean, I can do whatever I want at any time.
Yep.
If I want to get drunk for 3 days in a row, no one's going to stop. So I mean, it's reality. I mean, I could get away with it, and I could get away with it for years. And a lot of guys do, because they don't know what to do. They don't have any other pressures on their time. Whereas if you have kids running around, hopefully you're like, I really shouldn't be drunk all the time. Hopefully you're making good decisions because you have kids there.
There's a motivator. There's a motivating factor.
Yeah. But a lot of guys are looking for that motivating factor to change their lives. Whereas, I think one of the positive things that you get from some of the Manosphere guys is, the idea, well, you have to change it yourself. You can't wait for some woman or a family or whatever to come along and fix you, because you need to take responsibility for your own life. And although taking self-reliance and taking responsibility for your own life apparently is bad now. But I saw one of those privilege things the other day. I guess that's part of
it's out of fashion to take personal responsibility.
It's part of a privilege culture or whatever, self-reliance. But anyway, what did you get? Go ahead.
I wanted to add on that note, the structure. I've had that from entrepreneurship. So I guess I'm blessed or I've been fortunate to have that kind of life. From 17 years old, the 14-year anniversary of my company is in 2 days. It's coming up a couple days here. And I know it's unusual. I get most guys don't have that. I do forget sometimes though, because that's been my whole experience. It's my bubble. Is having massive responsibility through business that I've self-inflicted, so to speak. I have 3 businesses now legally. So it's increasingly complex and professional and big and all that stuff. But that's given me structure. So I could do what you're saying, get drunk 3 days in a row or whatever, right? But I don't. And I focus, what I do is I do entrepreneurship, and it's pretty high risk. It's pretty intense. Last year was an example of that, doing events in Poland. We did 3 events. Each event is a huge risk. Events are complex, logistical stuff. I mean, look at this year, look at COVID, and holy fuck. Every conference in the country has got fucking canceled.
Right.
We moved ours, thankfully. I was able to, but that was my own, ingenuity and creativity. So I was like, all right, this is fucked in the spring. Everything's fucked. The whole world could fucking blow up any day. Who knows? In the meantime, let me move these 2 events in the spring and combine it with the 3rd event rather than trying to finagle, 3 separate events. I'll just do 1 event combined with 3. And that's working really well now. People are fucking going apeshit over the tickets that just came out and stuff. And plus, obviously, 22Con blew up, and it's all working, but it's all high risk. And that keeps me focused, and that's keeps on my edge, that masculine edge. I think that maybe you would talk about in your books, staying on your path.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we both have a mission. I always say I'll never run out of projects. I mean, that's what would keep me from going down okay, well, I'm gonna pull it together now because I have shit to do. And because I have things I want to do. I'll never run out of projects. I always say every time I write a book that it's the last one, And then like a year later, I'm like, we'll make a really good book.
Good. Yeah.
Or an art project or whatever. I always have a million things that I'm working on, so I don't have that problem. But a lot of guys don't have that direction.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, why they flounder. And so they're looking for direction. So I think that, I mean,
Yep.
you and I both are examples of dudes who have saved by a mission to a certain extent. Like we have a mission, we have something we're doing. And so that gives us the structure and the reason to like get our shit together every day, and keep pushing forward and trying to be better.
Yeah. And I have no doubt that if I didn't have that pressure and that structure and that business multiple place, I probably would be very destructive. If I didn't have a positive outlet for my creativity, I get why these artists, like these famous legendary artists, these, throughout history, these painters and shit, they're all fucking alcoholics and fucking, the writers and shit, Hemingway, all this shit. I mean, they have positive outlets, thankfully, for that stuff. But even if it would be even worse, throughout history. There've been, how many guys throughout history have drunk, gotten drunk to death, killed themselves because they didn't have an art form to express through positively. I mean, that's saving some of these guys, these artists.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's people always say this saved me or that saved me. I've heard a lot of people say jiu-jitsu saved me, or like, there's all kinds of things that people do just need something to focus on and some kind of purpose and way to put it together. So, I mean, what made you want to do the 21 convention originally?
Yeah, originally. So it was actually called the Under 21 Convention, the original name. The first 2 years I was called that. And later we did one in 2016. I brought it back briefly. I was for young men. So I was 17 years old and I had found I just got out of high school, like a few weeks. I was in college, UCF, summer classes. And basically I was in the pickup community at that point. So that was my entry to the Manosphere. It was Ross Jeffries, MASF, Fast Seduction, these old famous websites back in the day, Alt, MASF, all that crap. And I was familiar with Mystery Method at that point, and the book, The Game, that was famous at the time, New York Times bestseller and all that. So I was in that community, and on top of that, I was involved with a local pickup community in Orlando, in Florida actually, called Top Layer. It stood for the Tampa Orlando Layer. Super awkward fucking name, but it was actually the best one in the country. It was famous because it was super well put together. The guy running it, which I think in a sense kind of rubbed off on me. I met him a few times. I don't know the guy too well, but the actual way it ran online, and then we had meetups in person. We met up at Universal City Walk, the theme parks and shit, and we'd just go approach women, like 30 of us. We would just go, harass these women on the street, like, hey, how you doing? Whatever the fuck, right? Who lies more, men or women? Like all this old school pickup shit.
Right.
But anyway, good practice, whatever. But I was involved in that community. So the larger pickup community, which is part of the larger Manosphere, and then a smaller local community in Florida, a meetup group for men, basically. It was very positive, actually, very, very good stuff. I met Socrates there, a lot of guys you see today at the events. And that kind of gave me the idea to do a meetup myself for young men. And so I was actually, when I first put the idea out there, I put it out on Mystery Method forums, so the old mystery pickup artists, all that shit. There was a section for young men. It was under 21. And they knew me from posting there because I was one of the only guys that showed my face. I take pictures of women and shit, picking them up, like it's pretty hot girls. I post pictures. And back then, this was like super taboo. Nobody did that. I mean, this wasn't like the Instagram age. This is 2006. Like this is like legendary shit.
Right.
I was like, yeah, who cares? I'm 17. Everybody go fuck themselves.
Right.
I just did, not thinking the future at all, but whatever, it worked out. And I put this out there. I'm like, hey, we should do an under 21 meetup in Orlando. It's great. There's a lot of places to go. We can all meet up. Everybody can fly in for a couple of days and we'll just go pick up chicks and try to figure out how to get better at picking up chicks, how to get better as young men, basically. And I put the idea out there and everyone went apeshit because no one had ever tried this before. So I basically had accidentally found a niche from my own age, speaking to guys my age. Because at that time in the pickup community, nobody gave a shit about young guys because they were broke. How many 17-year-olds have, back then it was all ebooks they would sell in the pickup community, right? The Manosphere. I was trying to get together when I was in high school, my friend, we were trying to get together and split an ebook because it was like $90. I mean, this is how desperate we're going to get women, right? But the consequence of that in terms of a market and a business is that nobody gave a shit about, legally, who wants to sell ebooks to 17-year-olds anyway, right? I'm picking up chicks. It's a bad idea, right?
Right.
Even 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old college kids. Anyway, I put this idea out there, an under 21 meetup, and everyone loved it. Everyone was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. We'll do it next summer or something. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then immediately someone's like, hey man, if you're going to meet up, you should just get a hotel conference room and maybe some people can speak. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I was like, yeah, we'll have an under 21 convention. And everyone was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I was like, okay, let's fucking do it. So before I knew it, I was putting together a convention for the next summer, which was July. So this is July 2006 at this point. And then I was planning now, I was like, all right, we'll do it. Let's just say next July. Like this 1 year. I was like, that's probably enough time. I just guessed basically. I'd never done a conference before. I had no experience organizing professional events like that. And so basically I put it together. And it was very motivating, the community. They were very excited for it. The moderators got involved from the forum because they were concerned they were going to shut it down. They actually locked the thread. It was like thousands of comments guys were posting. And they were worried because there was a bunch of young dudes meeting up. And they're like, this is a real company. They were doing, I mean, Mr. Met, there was like a multi-million-dollar company at this point. So they were like, whoa. We don't want to be reliable for this shit getting off the ground. But I talked to them. I'm like, hey, man, like, we're going to charge $20 at the door if you're from Florida, $40 if you're from out of state. So it's going to be, so they were very concerned too about a competitor, basically. I'm like, I like what you guys do. I'm not a competitor. We're a bunch of fucking 18-year-olds like trying to get better at this shit. And obviously you don't care about us because we don't have any money, but we like what you do. And so there was a genuine positivity. I think they had the older guys running the forum and the business. And so they unlocked it. And before I knew it, it picked up a lot of steam. A buddy of mine in college was taking web development at UCF, and he was able to put together a little website back in 2006 for me. So I paid like $40 for like GoDaddy to get this all set up and shit. And that was the founding of the company. And then we had about 80 guys show up from around the world. So mostly it was from guys from out of state. There's about, 20, 30 guys from Florida that showed up. The rest of them were flying in. And that's something that was special. We had speakers show up from these different companies a little bit back in the day, pickup companies. Some of the local guys. Socrates didn't speak at it, but he knew a lot of guys who did, like the top layer thing. Mm-hmm. So it was a cool little event. And on top of that too, there was, I got really lucky. I worked at Sears at the time selling TVs part-time, like those TVs and shit like that at Sears. And I knew a guy who did audio, like DJ audio stuff for weddings and shit like that on the side. So he gave me a deal for a couple $100. He did audio for the event, recorded all of it. And then a guy from the forum was taking in film school in California. He was like, hey, if you get my flight and put me up at your house or something for a couple of days, I'll film it for free. Mm-hmm. So before I fucking knew it, we had this cheap ass hotel room in Orlando, like a Holiday Inn, but it was nice. It was nice enough, right? Holiday Inn, sure. 3-star hotel, living the big life. And we had 80 guys show up and had basically a film team and an audio team. And we got lights from Sears that we like rented. I returned them when we were done. Nice. And those halogen, these cheap, those like garage lights, but it lit the stage, the speaking area. We had speakers. It was a 2-day conference. It was Saturday, Sunday. So 2-day, we got the film, we got the videos. And then as a young guy too, I was very frustrated. I didn't know about TED Event yet, how they did stuff they're publishing for free. But I did see the Manosphere, the pickup community. Everything was YouTube was still taking off then. There wasn't like much content for learning how to get better with women at that point on YouTube. Right. And everything for videos in the Manosphere at that point was super expensive. It was all DVD sets and CD sets. They were like $300, $400, $500, $600. Wow. Which at like 18 years old, you like really want this shit and you absolutely cannot afford it. Zero fucking chance. Right. If you're lucky, you can torrent it. You can find a torrent back then. Yeah. But if you want to buy something and actually support somebody, there's no fucking way you could do it. It was way out of your price league. And so that pissed me off. I hated that. I was like, fuck that shit. I was like, our convention was dope. And everyone's like, well, you can do the videos. I'm like, they're going to be free. And everyone was like, yeah. This was a huge deal back then. I can't even tell you. People take it for granted today publishing because we have YouTube and 4K and all this shit. Right. And I've taken a stand to keep publishing the videos for free for so long, which a lot of people have encouraged me not to do, make more money and all this shit. Right. But I believe in the message. I believe in the mission. Mm-hmm. And I believe long-term too in the profit, that actually there's more money in doing it for free anyway, long-term. In the short term, you sacrifice some profit, but in the meantime, you reach millions of more people, men. So that's how the company got started. We put the videos out maybe 2 months after the event happened, and it blew up, man. People loved it. And it's kind of just kept snowballing from there. I could get more into it, but that was the first year and how it all went down. I got very fortunate, man. I made profit on the first event, like $100. Yeah. And it was a nail biter, dude. The hotel was collecting cash from me after I was collecting cash from the attendees. Uh-huh. The hotel managers were watching me collect the cash to pay them for the room. And I had no idea if we'd have enough attendees because all they did was RSVP through email. There was no PayPal and shit we were using back then. They all just paid cash at the door. And I had no money. I had like $80 in my bank account. So if we didn't have enough money, even by like $100 or $200, I was fucking shit out of luck. Right. And we made it though, God willing. So yeah. So I mean, what advice would you have for someone trying to get something started somewhere? I mean, because a lot of people wait for it to be perfect, and that's never going to happen. What advice would you have for a young guy trying to start out? He who hesitates masturbates. That's an old pickup community saying, seriously. Old school, late 90s, early 2000s, guys would say that for approaching women.
Right.
But in business, it's kind of the same way. And what you just said reminds me of that. So you're waiting for it to be perfect. You're waiting, bullshit. You have to take action. You got to execute. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fuck up. But you also will have, I think, some beginner's luck, so to speak. Whatever reason the universe deems that.
Right.
Things work out. I think what it is, there's a lot of starting energy when you get something going. The excitement back then was crazy. And part of that is the novelty of it. So execution, especially off the bat, is important, and taking action, having balls, man. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's going to be risky no matter what. You're old, young, whatever. So it's going to be risky, and you got to execute. And not let fear dictate your actions. Have courage and actually follow through on that. And you'll be scared. Shit will happen, but you don't let that dictate your actions. You don't let it dictate your choices. Don't let it dictate what your body does, like physically. Like, what are you going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is not what fear tells me necessarily. I'll listen to it maybe as risk management kind of stuff. Now that I'm older, I understand that. I'm not just some fucking crazy gunslinging entrepreneur. I try not to be anyway too much, even if I come off like that. But I don't want fear to be the primary way that I make decisions. We'll put it that way. I want courage and I want mission. I want creativity and my own thoughts. What's important, my own values to be the primary driver of what I do, not negativity and fear and toxic garbage.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Well, I like that a lot. To wrap up, why don't we, what's going on at the 21 convention this year?
Yeah. My dream's coming true, man. This crazy ass fucked up year, we're going to do the biggest, best event I think we've ever done. So I've been dreaming for a while of doing a 21 summit, kind of a mega kind of thing. Like that's, I didn't have a more specific details of it early on. For about 2-3 years now, I'm thinking about this though. Not just a 21 convention, but like a multi-conference event. And now we're doing that. Now we're doing that partly out of necessity because of COVID. It kind of forced my hand to do it earlier than maybe I would have thought of 2021, 2022 or whatever. But we're doing 3 events this year, and the first time ever, 3 conferences as part of a larger summit, 21 Summit. And I think that actually be the new model going forward that we end up doing. So you'll see 21 Summit probably again next year in the fall, and the year after that, and the year after that. There's a couple reasons for that, business-wise and kind of mission-wise and personal sanity-wise. Events are fucking tough, man. Right. They're very high stress, they're risky, logistically complex, pain in the ass, all kinds of stuff. Even if you like them and you're good at them, it still sucks. Yeah. It's stressful, it fucking wears you out. Last year doing 3 was an example of that. Like the end of the year, I was like just fucking brain dead. I was like, oh my God, like I won, but at what expense? I'm like a zombie. I'm like, ugh. So this year though, we have going on right now is super important. I love it. And so it's gonna be 3 events. It's the 21 convention main event, the flagship event guys have come to know and love for 14 years now, basically, which evolved, of course, from the young men's event, the under 21 convention. It aged with me, and so did the name and the mission and the focus. On top of that, we have the 21 convention second Patriarch edition. That's basically the second time we've done the Patriarch edition, which is the main 21 convention, but it's got a much stronger focus on fatherhood, fathers, and family and patriarchy. You see some of that, obviously, in 21 convention, but I think it's a growing kind of niche. It's a growing market, and there's a growing need for it. And fathers want that, and they don't quite get that. They get some of that at main 21, but it's not primary. Where it's much broader, as you know, and much more bigger focus on masculinity overall. Even things like self-defense and stuff like that. So it's very diverse. So you got the main event for all men. You got the second event going on at the same time for fathers. It's a separate conference, same time, same venue, same weekend. And then finally, we have an event for women that is a long time coming, the 22 convention, Make Women Great Again. That's the first time ever we're doing that. And that has made me kind of a Z-list celebrity, I guess. Like internet famous legit, on top of what we've done with 21 convention, was already pretty big. Millions of views around the world. 22 convention has been sent to over 150 million people through news outlets. New York Times, New York Post, Piers Morgan, Good Morning Britain, The Blaze, The Real, like all kinds of shit. Celebrities like George Takei, Mr. Sulu, we're going after it. Alyssa Milano and shit like that. So we're doing a conference for women, and we're going to make women great again. And the mission is to make women great again and abolish feminism. And people see that as a joke, and that's good. I want them to think it's like kind of like Saturday Night Live, Mad TV kind of skit. I love that shit growing up. Right. But it's also a way, it's a kind of like a fake pump. It's real. And where this is the beginning. This is like anti-Seneca Falls in a sense. It's women who don't like feminism, who think it's gone way too far, and they want to hear from men, and they want to get mansplained to. And we're going to do some grade A, 100% mansplaining. All men speaking, major guys that you've seen the event. AJ Cortez, I'll be there. Coach Greg Adams, Stefan Molyneux, guys like that. Mm-hmm. So big deal. And we're filming all of it, and we're going to publish it free to the world. And I think through that and pissing off all these feminists, they're just going to drive a lot of attention to it. And inadvertently, they're going to educate millions of women to ditch feminism, to abandon it. And that's my goal, to get them to ditch feminism, ditch feminist beliefs on top of that. How women identify, that's it's important, I guess. It's useful, but it's not the core foundation of what they believe. Right. And I believe feminism for women in particular, never mind its effects on men that should have been very negative in family and patriarchy and fatherhood, but for women, it's super toxic too. And I think it ruins their lives at this point.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say it's responsible for executives. It's also responsible for Tinder. I mean, totally. You wouldn't have that without feminism.
It's also responsible for the epidemic of single motherhood. Single motherhood in America went from
which are related.
Totally. Yeah. So it's the first real pushback for women to push back against feminism, to learn about femininity from men. Like, what do men want? What are men going to say if we actually ask them and they talk to us in public? Not like some dude doing a video blog in his room. It's like on a public stage, professional lighting, camera work, and all that. Yeah. That's a big deal. I'm excited. So those 3 events are going on at the same time. And that's once for women, once for men, once for fathers. And all 3 going on at the same time. They'll be separate, but they'll be a little bit interaction between the events, dinners, things like that. I want to keep things pretty separate for male spaces and like women's spaces.
Right.
But there will be at least one co-ed event, the farewell party on Sunday night. And we all leave and we're all done. Mm-hmm. And we can all hang out, shit like that. Kumbaya.
Nice.
So that's what's going on, man. It's the Manosphere's, it's the Woodstock of the Manosphere, and the world's ultimate event for men, the ultimate event for fathers, the ultimate event for women. And I make no apology for that. They are really, really good, as you know, and I love it. And I'm really excited to be able to do it. It's a good opportunity, an opportunity of a lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I've always said, I mean, they're extremely professional. It's
I'm a fan. I post that a lot.
I saw it the other day. No, I mean, it is. I mean, I was, when I first walked in, I was like, oh, they're serious. Like they've got this figured out, rather than, like here's like, whatever. He's filming this with an iPhone and like one light on the stage. I mean, you put a lot of effort into making it professional on the level of like a TED Talk kind of deal.
Yeah. Some guys have hotels, and some guys have said we make it like a temporary TV studio. Yeah. All the cameras we do and shit like that. And it's important to me. I view what we're doing. I look at like, Martin Luther King and stuff like that. And I view as what we're doing is absolutely righteous for men, for fathers, for women now too. Mm-hmm. And we're hated for it. I mean, the guys like me and you are absolutely despised by, feminist, Marxist establishments. They hate us with a passion. They want us poor, dead, or whatever. Like it's that bad at this point. Oh yeah. And sometimes it's quite explicit. I mean, they're very literal and open at this point with it.
Absolutely.
So I view, the mission is extremely important, and because of that, I'm going to dress my Sunday best, so to speak, and that includes not only what I'm physically wearing, but the conference itself. It's going to be like super professional because it has to be. It's going to win. Cameras, we're going to use the best cameras, the best guys, the best audio team, the best lighting, all that shit, best hotels. And if we're going to win this war on feminism, as I call it sometimes, that's what has to happen. And for men and for everybody involved, no matter who the audience is. So professional, start to finish, boom.
Yeah. It's. I mean, that's what you have to do. I've said to a lot of people that if you have an alternative message, you're competing with Hollywood. Yeah. So I mean, that you have to. You're not ever going to match that production level, because that's at the $100 million level. But fortunately, the technology is there that it is much more affordable. I mean, I can sit and talk to you with a nice camera on 4K, and it's not. We couldn't do this 5 years ago. Be like a totally different situation. So we have the ability to produce content at a high level, relatively accessibly, and I think that professionalism helps the message.
Yeah, I think it actually protects it too. It helps it and it protects it. I think it's one of the reasons why now, fingers crossed, but we haven't had any problems with YouTube yet. And people they get surprised by that because we put out controversial content. Excuse me. But I think one of the reasons for that is the actual camera work and the professionalism of it. we use real venue. We're not in some fucking basement somewhere, 10 dudes sitting around somebody's, basement in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
These are nice fucking hotels, 4 and 5. We used a 5-star hotel in Poland. That was the nicest hotel in the country.
no, that was nice. Yeah.
So these are real hotels, and they like what we do. You'd be surprised, man. A lot of hotel managers and professionals, men and women, they love what we do. A lot of them are very traditional. They've told me flat out, like, yeah, men should be men, women should be women. I'm like, yeah, you're a radical. I'm coming here. Like, this is great.
Man, and the thing is, they call it the silent majority. And really it is. There's so many people just because they're not online screaming, and the people online screaming are all that you hear. And that's how the media gauges what's real in the world. It's their circle. It's the people who are online shouting, the people who are loud. But most average people, to some degree or another, are like, well, men and women are different. That's obvious, and a solid family is probably better than not. I think most people actually believe that. And despite the big narrative, the big cultural narrative, I mean, that just comes from, the coastal cities in many cases. And it's normal people really don't buy into that.
Yep. Oh, but with the professionalism, I was saying, with YouTube, I think one of the reasons they don't want to fuck with us, one of the reasons is that it's a company. It's not a personal face. My face is not the channel face.
Yeah.
So it's more, there's kind of a corporate company feel to it. That's good. I think it makes it harder for them to attack it. They can't character assassinate a company. It's harder to anyway. You can attack it and criticize it, but it's not, it's not a human being. It's a thing. It's a company. And then on top of that, the video is being professional, and the way we set it up, the lighting, the audio, the video, it makes people, I think, they don't know how much money and like attorneys we have. And, one time YouTube about a year ago, they contacted me to take down a video. One I gave actually, incidentally, but it was just a controversial video I gave them, my biggest speech ever, marrying Medusa.
Right.
And I basically told them very politely to eat shit. And if they want to talk any further, they can talk to my attorney. And I forwarded him to my attorney, actually, forwarded him on it, gave him his bar number in California, bar number in Florida, his cell phone number, his email, his website. I was like, there you go. I never heard from him again. And this is how you need to deal with these people. The minute they get serious with you, hey, here's my attorney, we're going to war, like immediately. Absolutely, go and kill shot jugular. I'll just fucking sue you. I'll find a way. And when you stack that professional element, like actual attorneys and shit I work with, then on top of that, good video quality and the MLK thing, dress your Sunday best. Yeah, they just don't want to fuck with us. And I think it's necessary to do that for the movement and the mission. And it protects it. It's actually very protective. It's a guarding kind of thing.
Absolutely. Cool.
And rant.
All right, man. Well, I think this has been good. And obviously I'll put the links to the 21 convention and everyone so they can find it and find you and all that. I appreciate that thing. And, I wish you all.
You going to be there yourself? You going to be there?
I bought the tickets. So I'm who knows what the world's going to do, but like, I'm planning on coming. So I just want to come and hang out with the guys, and I support what you do. So
thanks, man.
I'm glad to be there, and thanks.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate your time, and I just find it very amusing that our event is so good. Speakers come to just hang out. You're not even speaking at it. I'm just gonna come hang out across the country because it's like that good. Yeah.
Well, that's where the kids are. I want to go to the cool.
Yeah. Exactly. Nice. And I appreciate being on, man. Appreciate your time. Fuck yeah.
Cool, man. Thank you.